The wedding photos were still on my phone when I found out he had another wife. Not an ex-wife. Not a girlfriend he forgot to mention. A current wife. A woman who had been married to the same man I had just stood next to at an altar 3 days before, who had kissed me in front of our families, who had cried when he said his vows, actually cried, while she was somewhere else, probably waiting for him to come home. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor that night holding my phone with both hands like it was a weapon that had just gone off. The screen was bright in the dark. The words on it were so simple, so clean, a bank alert, his name, her name, a joint account I never knew existed. 5 years of deposits. 5 years of another life running parallel to mine, like 2 trains on separate tracks, and I had been so busy watching my own window that I never looked up to see the other one. My mother told me I was lucky it happened now and not later. I wanted to tell her it was already too late. I had already given him everything. My savings, my signature on a mortgage, my trust, my absolute, complete, embarrassing trust. And the worst part, the part I could not say out loud for months, is that I had been warned. And I smiled at the woman who warned me and told her she was jealous. My name is Luna. And this is how I found out that the man I married had built an entire second life on top of mine. And this is how I made sure he lost both. Before we go any further, I need to ask you something. If someone you loved looked you in the eye every single day and lied with a calm face, not once, not twice, but for years, at what point does staying become your fault? At what point does loyalty become something they used against you? Stay with me until the end of this story because I want to know where you think that line is. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The wedding photos were still on my phone when I found out he had another wife. I need you to sit with that sentence for a second. Not a past girlfriend, not someone from before me. A woman who was legally married to my husband on the day I married him. A woman whose name was on a bank account that had been active for 5 years. A woman who, I would later find out, had received a bouquet of flowers on the exact same weekend I received my engagement ring. My name is Luna. I am not a dramatic person. I am not someone who looks for problems or creates conflict for attention. I was raised in a house where you worked hard, kept your promises, and believed that if you were good to people, they would be good back. I believed that so completely that it almost destroyed me. I met Daniel at a work conference 4 years before we got married. He was in sales, I was in project management. He was charming in that quiet, specific way that makes you feel like you are the only person in the room. He asked questions and actually listened to the answers. He remembered things. 3 weeks after we met, he texted me a restaurant recommendation for a place I had mentioned once in passing. A place I had only mentioned once. I thought that was romantic. I thought it meant he was paying attention. I did not understand yet that men who study you that carefully are not always doing it out of love. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. By that point I had met his family, I had been to his apartment, I had introduced him to everyone I knew. Nothing felt wrong. Nothing felt hidden. I was happy in a way that felt solid, not just excited, not just new, solid. The kind of happy you build over time when you actually know a person, or when you think you do. He proposed on a Tuesday evening in October. No grand gesture, no restaurant with candles. He made dinner at home, pasta, which was the first meal he ever cooked for me, and when I came to the table, the ring was under my plate. I lifted the plate to set it properly, and there it was. A simple gold band with a small diamond. nothing flashy. He said he thought flashy proposals were performances and he was not interested in performing for me. He said he wanted everything between us to be real. I said yes immediately. I did not even pick up the ring first, I just said yes. We got married 11 months later. Small ceremony, 43 people. His parents, his brother, 2 cousins. My parents, my sister, my best friend Claire and a handful of people we both worked with. It was a Saturday in April. It rained in the morning but cleared by noon. I wore a dress I had saved for 8 months to afford. I did my own hair because I wanted it to feel like me, not like a production. He cried when he saw me walk in. That is the image I keep coming back to, the tears. I have spent so many hours since then trying to understand those tears. Were they real? Was any of it real? I still do not have a clean answer, and maybe that is the part that takes the longest to make peace with. We had a honeymoon in Portugal. 5 days it was. Beautiful, he was attentive and warm and everything I expected him to be. We ate late dinners, we walked until our feet hurt, we stayed up too long talking on the hotel balcony. I came home feeling like my life had officially begun, like everything before this had just been preparation. The bank alert came 3 days after we got back. The first crack, the bank alert, it was not even my alert. That is the strange part, it was his. Daniel had been using my laptop that week because his was at the repair shop. He had logged into his email but forgotten to log out, which he had done before, and I had never looked at his emails because I was not that kind of person. I trusted him. I had no reason to do anything else. But that morning, I opened the laptop to print something for work, and his inbox was sitting right there on the screen. And right at the top, from a bank I did not recognize, was an alert with both his name and a woman's name listed as joint account holders. The subject line said, "Low balance notification, joint account." I stared at it for a long time, long enough that the screen saver came on. Her name was Priya. I did not click on it. I do not know why, maybe because clicking on it would make it real. Instead, I printed what I came to print, closed the laptop, went to work, sat at my desk for 6 hours and did not tell anyone, not even Claire. I just sat there feeling like the floor was slowly dropping out from under my feet, but very slowly, so slowly I could keep pretending it was not happening. When I got home that night, I told Daniel I was tired and went to bed early. He brought me tea without being asked. He rubbed my back for a few minutes and said he hoped I was not getting sick. I lay there with my eyes open in the dark and thought about how easy it was for him to be kind to me. How natural it looked. How nothing about his face or his hands or his voice gave anything away. That was when I understood that what I was dealing with was not an accident or a mistake. It was a skill. I want to be very honest about what I did next, because I have had people tell me I should have just asked him. And maybe in a different situation, with a different kind of problem, they would be right. But I had looked into that man's face for 4 years. I had watched him tell small, comfortable lies to other people with a completely straight expression. Lies about being stuck in traffic when he was just late. Lies about forgetting to call when he had clearly just not wanted to. Small lies, the kind most people tell, but he told them without any friction at all. No hesitation, no tells. If I asked him directly, he would deny it instantly and I would never find out the truth. I knew that, so I did not ask. I waited. That weekend, he went to visit his brother out of town. He did this once or twice a month and I had never questioned it. He kissed me goodbye on Friday evening and I smiled and waved from the door, and then I sat down at the kitchen table and I opened my own laptop and I started to search. The bank's name from the alert was easy enough to find. I searched it combined with Daniel's full name. I searched for Priya combined with his last name. I searched public records. I searched social media with every combination I could think of. What I found stopped my breathing for about 30 seconds. There was a Priya with Daniel's last name. Not his maiden name, not a hyphenated name. His full last name, the same one I now had, she had it too. Her social media was private, but her name was right there, listed plainly. I found a comment she had left on a mutual acquaintance's photo, someone from Daniel's hometown, where she had referred to herself in a way that made clear she considered herself his wife. That comment was from 8 months ago, 2 months before our wedding. I closed the laptop. I went to the bathroom. I ran cold water over my wrists the way my mother taught me when I was a teenager and feeling overwhelmed. And then I did something I had never done before in my adult life. I called my sister and I told her everything. My sister's name is Diane. She is 4 years older than me and she has always been the practical one, the one who thinks in straight lines while I tend to think in circles. I told her everything on the phone in the bathroom with the faucet still running so Daniel would not hear if he called. She was quiet for a very long time after I finished. Then she asked one question. She asked if I still had access to his email inbox. I told her yes. I told her it was still open on the laptop. She told me to screenshot everything, every email from that bank, every address or contact or name that did not belong. She told me not to move money, not to do anything that could be called interference. Just document. Screenshot and forward everything to a personal email address he did not have access to. She told me to be calm and thorough and to act like nothing was wrong until we had enough to understand what we were actually dealing with. And then she said the thing that cracked me open completely. She said, "Luna, I am so sorry. I am so sorry this is happening to you. You deserve so much better than this. And I know that right now that does not help at all, but I need you to hear it anyway." I cried for about 2 minutes. Then I stopped, wiped my face, went to the laptop and started screenshotting. What I found in those emails was worse than I expected. Not dramatically worse. There was no confession, no love letter, no obvious smoking gun written out in clear sentences. It was worse in the way real things are worse, quietly in the details. There were bank statements going back 4 years. A joint account opened before he and I had even started dating seriously. Regular transfers, not huge amounts but consistent, monthly, like a household budget. There was an email from a property management company addressed to both of them about a lease renewal. There was a note about a car insurance policy. There was at one point a message from what appeared to be a doctor's office with appointment reminders addressed to both names. They had a life. A complete, functional, documented life. And I was the other one. Daniel came home Sunday evening with a bag of pastries from his brother's town, which he always brought back. He hugged me and asked about my weekend, and I smiled and told him it was quiet. I asked about his brother. He told me his brother sent his love. He unpacked his bag, sat on the couch and turned on the television like nothing in the world was wrong. That night I lay awake and ran calculations in my head, not about feelings, about time, about money, about what I had signed. We had bought a house 6 months before the wedding, both names on the mortgage. I had contributed 30% of the down payment from savings I had been building for 7 years. 7 years of careful, patient saving. I had trusted him enough to put my savings and my name on a piece of property with a man I apparently did not know at all. I thought about the mortgage. I thought about the joint account we had opened together for household expenses. I thought about the health insurance I had added him to through my employer. I thought about the beneficiary update I had made to my retirement account 2 months after the engagement. He had been very thorough, very patient. 4 years is a long time to maintain a performance, but he had done it cleanly. And now his name was on nearly everything I owned. I did not sleep that night. I lay there next to him and I did not sleep. I told Claire the following Thursday over lunch. I had been going back and forth about it all week, but I needed someone who had known Daniel from the beginning, someone who could tell me if I had missed something obvious. Claire had always liked Daniel. She had never said a single negative word about him in 4 years. But when I laid out everything I had found, the bank account, the property records, the shared insurance policy, the name, she did not look surprised in the way I expected. She looked like she was trying to decide whether to tell me something. I asked her directly. I asked her if she knew something. She said no, she did not know. But she said there had been one moment at my engagement party when she had gone to get her coat from the guest room and overheard Daniel on a phone call in the hallway. She had not thought much of it at the time because she only caught a few words. But one of the words she caught was a name. She thought it was a work call. She told herself it was a work call. She put her coat on and went back to the party, and she never mentioned it because what was there to say? A name overheard in a hallway at a party. The name she heard was Priya. I sat very still for a moment. Then I picked up my fork and I ate the rest of my lunch because what else do you do? What else is there to do in that moment except sit with it and keep moving? Diane had already looked up 3 family law attorneys by the time I called her back after lunch with Claire. She had done it quietly on her own without me asking, because that is who she is. She had already screened them and had one recommendation. She told me the first consultation was free, and she had already scheduled it for the following Monday using her own name so nothing would appear in my search history or on my accounts. I went alone. I sat across from a woman named Ms. Carter who had calm eyes and a notepad, and who listened to everything I said without changing her expression once. When I finished, she asked me a series of very specific questions. About the mortgage date, about the down payment, about when the joint household account was opened, about whether Daniel had ever provided documentation of income or assets before the marriage, about whether I had a prenuptial agreement. We did not have a prenuptial agreement. He had suggested it once early on, and I had said I did not think we needed one. He had agreed quickly, too quickly in hindsight, but at the time I read it as him being relaxed and trusting. Ms. Carter explained some things to me very clearly. She told me that if Daniel was currently legally married to another person, then our marriage was void, not just voidable, but legally non-existent, because he lacked the legal capacity to enter into a valid marriage. She told me this was called bigamy, and that it was a criminal offence. She told me that my down payment on the house was recoverable, that any financial contributions I had made to joint assets during what I believed was a marriage were potentially recoverable, and that I had options. She told me to continue documenting everything. She told me not to confront him yet. She told me to gather any financial documents I had access to, and she told me to not move any shared money because that could complicate things. I walked out of that office and stood on the sidewalk in the afternoon sun and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, something colder and more precise than anger. Clarity. For the first time since finding that email, I was not spinning. I had a direction. About 3 weeks after I first found the email, Daniel's mother called me. She had always been perfectly pleasant to me, warm in a measured way. She remembered my birthday, she asked about my work, she sent a generous gift at the wedding. I had never felt particularly close to her, but I had not felt unwelcome either. She called on a Wednesday afternoon and she asked very gently whether everything was all right. She said Daniel seemed a little tense lately and she wondered if there was anything going on between us. She said she hoped we were communicating well. She said marriage is an adjustment and it is important not to let small things build up. I said everything was fine. I said we were adjusting. I thanked her for calling. After I hung up, I sat with that call for a while. Was she fishing? Did she know? Was she trying to warn me in some indirect way, or was she genuinely just a worried mother? I could not tell, I still cannot. But the call confirmed one thing: Daniel was noticing something, he was not sure what. But he was paying enough attention to his mother to say something that made her call me. He was beginning to sense that the ground was shifting, he just did not know how much yet. That evening he was unusually quiet at dinner. He asked me twice if I was okay. I told him I had a headache. He brought me ibuprofen without being asked. He offered to cancel the plans we had that weekend if I needed rest. I told him not to cancel. I told him I was fine. I told him the headache was already going away. It was not going away. But that was not the kind of thing he needed to know. Priya contacted Ms. Carter 12 days after Diane passed along the information. She arrived with her own documentation, years of it, organized in a folder she had apparently been keeping since the first time she realized something was wrong. She was, in her own way, just like me, patient, careful, slow to act. Someone who had waited too long to be believed and was still not entirely sure she would be. Ms. Carter called me after their meeting. She told me that with Priya's documentation and mine together, we had enough, more than enough. She laid out the next steps. Step 1, the bigamy complaint to local authorities. This was Priya's to make since she was the legal spouse. She had agreed to make it. Step 2, the civil filings, my claim on the down payment. The accounting of all household contributions. The request to have my name removed from the mortgage while his obligations to the property were maintained. Step 3, the notification to his employer. Daniel worked for a company that had a strict ethics policy. Ms. Carter had reviewed it. What he had done qualified under several provisions. This was optional, but both Priya and I agreed it was appropriate. Step 4, the conversation with his family, not a confrontation, a notification. Ms. Carter advised this for our own protection so that when things became public, we had already delivered the facts ourselves and could not be accused of ambushing anyone or being motivated by drama. I asked Ms. Carter how long before Daniel would know what was coming. She said, "By the time he knows, it will already be done. If you have ever stayed too long, given too much, or trusted someone who was keeping a second life hidden from you, this comment section is yours. Tell me, what was the moment you finally knew, not suspected? Knew, was it a document, a name, a feeling you had learned to silence? I want to hear from you. And if someone you know needs to hear this story today, share it with them. Sometimes the most important thing is knowing you are not the only one.